All right, it's 4 o'clock, and we've got Coach Clawson here. Appreciate everybody joining this week. And with that, we'll turn it over to Coach for an opening statement, and then we'll open it up for questions. Coach, you're muted.
Got it. I'll get it by 2022. Good to see everybody. Thanks again for joining us virtually. And I'll just wrap up Virginia Tech. Like I said, after the game, really proud of our whole team. I just thought we competed extremely hard for 60 minutes. I never, ever felt a let up on the sidelines at any point during the game. I just felt our entire team was just emotionally invested in that game. If you see some of the reactions on the sidelines from the interceptions or complete passes or touchdowns, it was just really encouraging to watch that, the next day, to just see the reactions on the sideline. So, certainly to begin with, really proud of our defense. Obviously, Nick Anderson and Boogie Basham had outstanding games for us, and were named the Players of the Week in the ACC, and Nick won a lot of national awards, but it was really the entire unit. I thought our defensive line did a great job of penetrating and setting edges against the stretch play. I thought our linebackers played very much downhill, which we needed to do in terms of, not just occupying their gap, but plugging the gap and indenting the gap in firm tackles. We loaded the box and we got away with it because we played really well in the secondary. Our safeties, Travion Red had a good game. AJ Williams had a really good game. And we're a 3 safety system. And again, obviously Nick Anderson had the 3 picks, but AJ and Trey Red had outstanding games as well. And I thought our corners played well. Again, we were able to kind of load up in there because, we held up on the perimeter, which was really encouraging. Offensively, again, we didn't turn the football over. We built a lead. And then because of how the defense was playing in the second half, we were able to play a little bit more conservatively. We didn't take a lot of chances. We were able to bleed the clock. We didn't play with the tempo that we normally play with. Because quite frankly, we didn't feel we had to score 40 points at that point to win the game. So I thought Warren Ruggiero and our offensive staff adjusted very appropriately to the way the game was being played. And I thought it was 2 weeks in a row that we really got good special teams play. Jack Crane's kickoffs, most of them were touchbacks. The ones that weren't, our kickoff cover unit was really good. We pinned them inside the 20 once. Our punt coverage was outstanding. Virginia Tech has really outstanding returners, and we held them to 1 return for negative yardage. The way we recovered the onside kick was a great, courageous play by Jasir Taylor, but it was also a really smart play by Travion Red, that on the 1 bounce, you can fair catch it. And he saw the high 1 bounce and Travion Red fair caught it, and that got us the kick catch interference. So that was a really smart play by a 5th-year senior. And then the execution of the pooch punt at the end of the game was good protection, a great kick by Ivan, but again, a heads up play by Keyshawn Williams to catch the ball on the 2-yard line. So we did a lot of good things. I think we've improved the past 2 or 3 weeks, and we want that to be a trend that continues. Looking ahead to Syracuse, this is a very important game for us. I've known Dino for a number of years, ever since he took over at Bowling Green, and I certainly have a lot of respect for Dino. He always has his team ready to play, especially against us. And he always gets his football team back. I think their staff did a great job. I'm sure the Liberty loss was very disappointing to them. And then to respond, they were down 6 points with the football against Clemson with a couple of minutes left in the 3rd quarter. They've played Clemson more competitively than anybody. And a lot of their losses were 1-score games late in the game that kind of got away from them. So, the Carrier Dome is always a tough place to play. And I think Syracuse is an improving football team. Their freshman running back Tucker is a really good player. He averages over 5 yards a carry. Their receiving skills outstanding. Harris, Johnson, Quealy, that combination of receivers, I would put in the top 2 or 3 of the whole ACC. We've always struggled to cover these guys. And Harris is a guy that just really hurt us a year ago. They have a really good tight end as well. With Hackett, and Benson is a good pass catcher. Their offensive line, I think, is improving. And defensively, they've got 2 defensive ends that can rush the passer, a really good nose guard. And they're very multiple. They throw a lot of looks at you. It's a lot to prepare for in a week. And, I'm going to sound like a broken record, but these guys, again, are always some of the best coached special teams in the ACC. Coach Lustig, their special teams coordinator, I think is outstanding. Their guys play hard. Their specialists are excellent. They got a good return game. And again, we got to focus on Wake Forest to make sure we get better, but Syracuse is always a tough test for us.
Dave, you talk about preparation. How is it to kind of sell out against the run against Virginia Tech and then have to kind of reverse engineer that thing to go against more of a passing offense in the following week?
That's college football. I think that's what makes college football. And again, this is, I'm certainly not objective, but I think it's what makes it more interesting than the NFL, is that you have all these different styles of offense, and you have Virginia Tech, which has a big back and tight ends, and they're going to pound you. And then you turn around a week later and you're going against a team that puts 3 and 4 receivers on the field with tremendous skill and more of a passing based offense. Now these guys can run the ball too, though. I mean, they ran it very effectively against Syracuse, or against Clemson, so it's not like they're one dimensional. Just their ability to make big plays in the passing game. These guys really throw the deep ball well. They've got really good skill, and it's college football. It's a different challenge, completely different challenge.
Dave, what about the fact of going on an airplane and getting out of your bubble? Are you at all, you mentioned a little bit Saturday night, everybody's been doing a great job. What is your trepidation with, going up there and doing that kind of thing? You're really playing a legitimate road game now.
Yeah, I mean, this is the first time the whole year that we've left the state of North Carolina, and we're only going to do it twice the whole season. So, we're just going to be very precautious. We're going to, have our masks, and we're going to have our PPE equipment, and we're going to go up there in New York State right now. Once we get to the hotel. I've just been informed I can't even go out and go for a walk. We have to quarantine inside the hotel. So I, usually like to get up in the morning and go for my morning run before a game. And I just got told a half an hour ago I can't do that. So I got to figure something out, because I don't want to get up and not be able to do anything before the game.
Do you shorten the trip? Do you shorten the trip at all, or is it the same amount of time that you're up there?
No, you just don't want to mess with the airplane.
Right.
Anytime it seems like I've tried to shorten the trip, the plane's late and you end up getting up there at 10 o'clock at night. I did that once against BC a couple of years ago, and we didn't get up to Boston until 10 o'clock. So I'd rather get up there early, get in the hotel, get into a routine. And then once you get there, you try to keep your routine similar for home and away games. But even the team meetings up there, we can't have a team meeting. New York State still has protocols in place that it changes everything we do before a game. So we appreciate we're allowed into the state. We appreciate they're letting us play the game. But once again, this is just college football in 2020. There's nothing normal about it.
Just curious, who tells Dave Clawson he can't run in the morning?
The health department of New York. So if Governor Cuomo tells me I can't run, I'm not running. I don't think that would be the AP story, Aaron Beard, I'd like written of the football coach at Wake Forest violated New York State protocols, especially when that was the state I grew up in. So I'm going to respect Governor Cuomo and his protocols, just like we respect Governor Cooper and his protocols in North Carolina.
Dave, I'd appreciate that as well, not having to write that story. So I'm glad you're doing that. I did want to ask you, when you guys had such an odd month where you took the 2 losses, you had a game postponed, and then, moved a game around. You've had 2 straight wins now. How do you think, is there a difference in mood with the guys that now they've had some success and maybe there's a little bit more of a rhythm or routine to what you're doing?
Yes, absolutely. There's, the vibe in a locker room and in a meeting room after a win is a lot different after a loss. And you hope it's a feeling that they love it. They understand why they feel that way and the work that went into preparing. And you hope that there's a willingness to do it again. And I think that's the greatest challenge of college football is getting a college football team to be consistent week in, week out, especially in 2020 with COVID. And there's all these things they can't do. And, midterms going on and papers due. And it's just, they're not professionals. There's other things going on in their lives. And there's academic stresses and the stress of COVID. And to be honest with you, that was part of the reason we celebrated the way we did after the game the other day is they're not able to go out and celebrate a win like they normally would. And we just wanted to provide a moment that they could let their hair down and have fun and dance around a little bit and, have the joy of a well-earned win.
Dave, after that emotional win, you're now going on the road to face a Syracuse team that has struggled a little bit this season. Do you fear any chance of a letdown with your team? Because winning those games earlier in the month loses an impact if you go to Syracuse and drop that one.
Les, every season, every game is a new season. And, I'm not worried about a letdown. I'm worried that I think Syracuse is capable of playing at a high level. I think with any football team, including Wake Forest, you could put on our highlights and say, wow, and you can put on our lowlights and say, boy, they're not very good. And Syracuse is certainly capable of being a very dangerous football team. And, again, they've got really good skill. I think their offensive plan and their design is always extremely well thought out. They certainly know what they're doing with that offense. I really see a consistent defensive philosophy evolving. They've played really good defense at times this year. They certainly had North Carolina on the ropes for a while. They played really well against Pitt. And again, they were right in that Clemson game. And, part of it was turnovers. Their offense, gave up some points and they blocked a punt. So again, I think Syracuse has good players. And again, we've gone against Dino now. This is the 5th year and his teams are always well prepared.
Coach, you mentioned the energy on the sideline in the win against Virginia Tech. How much would you attribute that to Nick Anderson's performance and how the guys were that he was playing so well once again?
Well, that energy was there the whole game, Eddie. It really was. I mean, if you like Jasir Taylor, the interception that he almost had, if you watched our sideline explode, even though it was ruled off, I mean, guys were so excited and so into the game. And that was before Nick had 1 pick. And, those are the things as a head coach that I love to see, because that tells me that we have a football team that's engaged, that's emotionally invested, and they're there for each other. And I'm telling you, it was, it was electric. And we had such a good week of preparation. Usually before games, I can be a little uptight and, geez, what's going on? And you have those butterflies. And Friday night when I went to bed, I felt really good about our preparation. And Saturday before the game, I was even visiting with our coaches and just said, I'm not sure what's going to happen, but boy, I think we had a great week of preparation. And I think that happens when a team is invested and cares. And to see that go from our top players of Boogie Basham and Jasir Taylor and Zach Tom and Sam Hartman down to, the walk-on scout team guy that's fifth string when they're celebrating, I think that's a real positive.
Dave, do you see you've got kind of a young team, but some veterans, a real good mixture. Do you see this kind of team being able to sustain this and be consistent as you come to different forks in the road here during the season?
I hope so, John. I mean, one of the things I look at every week is, traditionally we've had our better teams here when we're older. And this is probably the youngest team I've had here since 2015. But the key thing is we have some key veterans. Zach Tom and Sean McGinn and Loic Nye on the offensive line, and Javiante Nash and Sam Hartman. And even though Christian Beal and Kenny Walker are playing more than they've played, those guys have played before, and Chapman has played. And on defense, we start a number of seniors. Now, a lot of the depth is younger. Some of the guys in the secondary with the injuries are younger, but Boogie Basham, Suleiman Kamara, Trey Red, Jaquez Williams, Miles Fox, those guys are all fifth, sixth year players. And so I think the good thing is, even though we're younger, there's a core of fifth year and fourth year players that know what to do, know what it takes. And I think as this goes on, they're starting to do a better job of leading the younger players. I mean, Jasir Taylor's a guy that his growth and development as a leader, he's really taken over that corner room and helped Kalen Carson and Gavin Holmes and some of those younger players of teaching them how to prepare. Travion Red has done a great job of developing AJ Williams. I mean, they'll come up here and he'll tell AJ, hey, we're watching film together. And that allowed us to move Travion Red to a high safety and start AJ and Travion last game, because basically Trey got AJ ready to start. And so I'm just seeing more individual examples of leadership like that, mentoring leadership, that I think has really helped our football team. And when the older players do that for the younger players, now the younger players don't want to let the older players down. Nick Anderson doesn't want to let Luke Masterson down. He knows he's playing a lot more because Luke's out. He knows this is Luke's senior year. And he doesn't want to disappoint Luke because Luke's invested so much time into Nick, helping him get ready. And those relationships are things that I love to see. That tells me that a team is there for each other. So can we sustain it? I think some of those bye weeks early maybe helped us develop. We've got a bye week after this, and certainly, that 5-week stretch at the end is going to be challenging. So, we got to try to get this one and play well and do everything we can to get Syracuse, and then we'll deal with that other problem later.
Can you catch us up on Tyler, Zion, and Nasir? That trio isn't on the depth chart this week. And they didn't play last Saturday.
Yeah. I think with Nasir and Tyler, we were really hoping. I mean, they've got soft tissue injuries, and it's just kind of a week by week deal. And I would say they're doubtful for this week. So I was hoping we'd get them back, but I think with the bye week after this week, you just don't want to you don't want them to be 60% or 70% and then have a setback that you then lose a month. And Zion's going to be a few more weeks.
Hey, Dave, what kind of reaction have you heard from your players given the significant uptick of positive cases on campus since last weekend?
Well, we update them with that every week. And we just keep reinforcing that they've got to do everything they can to try to stay in a bubble. And that's really hard in college. But we're very attuned with the dashboard. I think Wake Forest has done a great job of being transparent and communicating to everybody exactly where we are. And we're just taking every precaution we can. And any interaction with somebody outside of our bubble, I tell our players to assume everybody they interact with outside of our bubble has COVID.
Dave, I had a question about you and Dino, both coached at Bowling Green. What was the biggest lesson you learned from your time with the Falcons? And Dino said yesterday that you guys still have constant conversations. What are those like?
Oh, I mean, we have ACC meetings, and Dino and I get along really well. And so a lot of times when there's issues in the ACC, I'll call Dino or he'll call me, and we'll kind of have offline discussions about stuff. And, I think this offseason, both Syracuse and Wake Forest were two of the last schools to come back. And so just, we kind of helped each other with how we were dealing with managing COVID protocols on our football team. And I think we both had concerns when, everybody else was coming back in May and June, and we weren't getting our team back till July. So I think we had concerns about how to keep guys healthy in July and through camp, and some of those challenges. So again, we weren't at Bowling Green together. I left and then he took over, but he did an outstanding job at Bowling Green. Took him to 2 MAC championship games and won one. And I know the players really enjoyed playing for him. And that connection, has kind of led to, he's one of the guys at the ACC meetings that I always end up having a lot of conversations with. And, I really like Dino a lot. He's really enjoyable. He's extremely personable, and he's a good guy.
You said your linebackers got downhill more last week. How would you grade their performance overall? And do you believe that Chase Monroe is playing himself into a bigger role?
Yes, yes, and yes. So they graded out better. I thought they were a lot more physical against the run. And Chase Monroe is, like I said, we need to be an ascending football team. And the way that you become an ascending football team is you have ascending football players. And Chase Monroe continues to get better. He's extremely smart. He fits the run game well. I think he's getting more comfortable in coverage. And he was outstanding on special teams. He's become one of our best special teams players. He starts on 3 units, and he's the guy that made the play on that fake punt. And if he doesn't make that play, it's probably a much bigger gain. I mean, there were 2 plays in that game. Chase, the play that he makes on the fake punt, and there's one time that Virginia Tech motioned a receiver, faked the sweep, and ran a quarterback counter to the boundary. And we were misaligned, and Jasir Taylor came under a block and made a play that if he doesn't make, that's a 50-yard play. And so you go back and you say, well, geez, that's a 4-yard play, and the fake punt got him a first down. If Chase Monroe doesn't make that play and Jasir Taylor doesn't make that play, it's a touchdown, and that's a much different game at the end. So it's, you win a 1-score game or lose a 1-score game. People talk about Nick's picks and, certainly the pooch punt and the great run by Kenny Walker. But there were some defensive plays there that were very subtle, that if we don't make those plays, it's a different football game. And I'm sure Virginia Tech is looking at that saying, holy cow, if we just sustain that block for a fraction of a second more, it's a tie football game and we're going to overtime.
Dave, according to Will's note, you guys lead the nation in turnover margin. How key is that as you guys continue to, try to win games?
We're just trying to win turnover margin every week. I don't want to talk about that one.
We won't talk about Sam's not interception streak.
No, he didn't throw one last week. That's what we'll talk about. Our goal is to win the turnover margin on a weekly basis.
Dave, you talked earlier in the year that because of no spring, because practice was so messed up and the game situation so messed up, you didn't really have a feel for the identity of your team now or then. We're halfway through the season now. Do you feel like you do? And how would you describe it? And are there things you know you can count on and game plan and so on accordingly?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think we're evolving a lot differently than I thought. You know, when you don't have spring and you don't have those non-conference games, I said this the other day, I forget when, maybe Will remembers, but, you know, every year your team's identity is different, and you have spring and camp. And then really in those non-conference games, I like to play those 4 games early, because then you kind of figure out what you are before you start the conference schedule. And we weren't able to do that this year. And we're different than I thought. Certain guys have stepped up. You know, we're relatively stronger in certain areas than I thought we'd be. And I think as coaches, we're adjusting the emphasis of our schemes because of that. And, you know, so yeah, I think we're starting to form an identity. I think our corner play has been really good. You know, that certainly was a concern going into the season, losing a Sang and Amari. But I think our corner play is really improved. And that's allowed us to do some different things up front that we probably didn't anticipate doing. You know, I think our offensive line is gelling together. We lost 3 starters, and those guys I think are improving. You know, Ken Walker has certainly made a step. Christian Beal's a good player. Our slot receiver position is probably ahead of where I thought. You know, so there's been some pleasant surprises and maybe some other areas that were maybe not where I thought would be, and we need to make improvements there.
And thoughts on, you're on a nice roll right now, thoughts on a bye week after this one?
2020. So, I mean, it's, you know, we had a bye week before the season. We had a bye week after 2 games. We had a bye week after another game. You know, sometimes at Wake Forest, you get those breaks in late October, early November. It's really maybe not a bad thing academically. You know, at this point, our guys are having midterms, papers are due. You know, we'll give them a little bit of time off and really have them focus on their academics, even more so. You know, I always get worried in the season when we play 5 or 6 or 7 consecutive games, that the combination of playing ACC football and the academic pressures our players are under, you know, that combination can get tough. So I'm going to look at this as a positive.
How heavily did Nick Skiba lobby you to try to kick that field goal at the end of the game? And then how do you handle that as a coach?
He said, "Coach, I can hit this." And I said, "Nick, I know you can hit it." I said, "But we've had a little bit of leakage, you know, on our protection. And I think this is going to give us the best shot to win. I'm not doing this because I doubt your ability to hit it. I just think this is the way this game's being played. Gives us the best chance to win." And Nick's great. I mean, he's team first, and it worked, so it was a good decision. If it didn't work, it would be an awful decision, right? That would be, boy, what a dummy. He could have went up 10 points and he didn't kick the field goal. And you know, I mean, it's, you know, you're there in the moment and you're saying, okay, this is a 49-yard field goal. And we've got less than a minute left. And what gives you the best chance to win? You know, if you hit it, great, you win the game. If you don't hit it, they've got great field position. And if they block it, who knows what's going to happen? And I think if we had 5 more yards, if that thing was maybe, you know, a 44-yarder or 43-yarder, I probably would have kicked it. Just sometimes on those longer kicks, the trajectory of the ball is lower. And if you watch some of the field goals and extra points we kicked, they had gotten some penetration and arms up. And you know, when we watch PAT field goal, I usually watch the field side, and I just had concerns about that thing being blocked. And, you know, I kind of had the memory of, you know, the Clemson Virginia game, and Clemson tried a real long field goal right before the half. That was, you know, when you kick them long, you're going to kick them low. And I debated it, and I just finally, I made the decision to try the pooch punt, and fortunately that worked out. So there was really 3 decisions on the table. And if I made any of them we won, it was the right one. If I made any of them we lost, it was the wrong one. Not that any of you guys would have been critical of it.
Strangely enough, if you move the ball up about 5 yards, doesn't that make pinning them back on the punt that much more difficult too?
It does. There's certainly a sweet spot. At that point, the debate would have been, do you take the delay of game? And at that point, there's even some debate of, do you go for it? You know, if it's 4th and 3 and 4th and 4, you know, and you feel good about converting it, you then win the game by taking a knee. You know, so there was, you know, a lot of our analytic research was going on then. We had all the analytics working, and you know, if it's here, we should do this. If it's here, we should do this. If it was here, we should do that. And at the end of the day, though, you have to go with your gut. And, you know, the analytics, I think, said that we should kick the field goal. But I felt really good if we could pin them and make them try to go 90 some yards in 50 seconds. You know, they're a team that makes a lot more big plays in the run game than the pass game. And against a different opponent, you may do something different.
So you're not a slave to that chart?
No. Sometimes I use it to kind of reinforce my instinct. If it doesn't agree with my instinct, it gets me thinking. But I'm thinking about those things on 1st and 2nd down, not 4th down. You know, you don't want to waste a timeout, or, you know, the second you're in 1st down, you got to start thinking about those things. But when we did it, I said, if they go 90 and score, it was a bad decision. And you just got to, again, go with your, you know, you do your research, but you also got to go with your gut, and you got to be prepared to handle the criticism if it doesn't work.
Dave, I saw you're going to be on with Lester Holt tonight. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So that was a neat story. And probably what's the most refreshing part of this whole thing is just how team-oriented Nick is. He really doesn't want any attention for himself. I said, you know, Nick, it's not too often that we get to go on NBC News. You might want to do this one.
Do you think Nick realizes how big of a deal what he's doing is, just how strange it is?
I think Nick, from the second he was here, viewed himself as an ACC football player. I think he thought he belonged here. You know, the story isn't walk on with 3 interceptions. The story is a young man that came here prepared, that when we lost Luke Masterson, Nasir Greer, Zion Keith, and Kobe Davis, that here was a young man that got himself ready to play. Like so many of our players want the opportunity, and then they're going to get ready. He got ready for the opportunity. I mean, what he's doing isn't an accident. He came here with the mindset day one that he was a player. And that, I said this earlier, this is a little bit of a silver lining of the pandemic. You know, we had all these protocols when we started practice, and we did split practices, so we never had more than 50 players on the field at once. So we ran these split practices that he got a ton of reps because of the split practices. And the more reps that we gave him, it became obvious that he knew what he was doing and had some instincts and could make plays. So again, if it's a typical year and we're not having split practices, I mean, eventually, you know, the cream always rises to the top. I don't know if it would have risen so quickly.
Maybe you can find a treadmill Saturday morning.
I think they're trying to find, like, when we're on the road, we're not even allowed to go in and use the gym. I mean, so I'm going to be pacing in my hotel room or up and down the hallway.
Guess you're glad it's a noon kickoff.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, if that thing was an 8 o'clock kickoff. So